Hey Marina, can you hear me? Hey Marina, can you hear me?
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh, nice. Thank you. All right. I'd like to see your faces. Good morning. Thank you. All right. That's much better. Okay. So today we didn't quite finish up on last class. So we'll finish up one small point and then we'll move on to class 5. Okay. So we made a big description last class about all the ways in which people like you and me can take prakti moksha vows, like the vows of individual freedom. So my first question, just as a review, what does a vow of individual freedom mean? Da, da, da. Do we not remember? Did you guys party too hard yesterday? Uh, uh, the vows of individual freedom, those are kind of okay. Vows of individual freedom are vows because you desire to get out of this suffering life yourself, individually, if you're able to do it. And if you follow these, you're able to reach a kind of, you call it a lower peace, like a kind of nirvana. So where you yourself are out, but you're not entirely enlightened yet. Which, has a lot of implications of, how do I say this? If you could understand the causes for it, and that's what the vows are the causes. If you could do a deep study, not only of these, this list of things to do, but like, how does this apply to your life? Like, that's the most important part. It's not just, oh, here's 10 agreements, or here's 253 or 300 and some, what's the final number on that one? 364. Um, whatever those numbers are, are they, you know, if you can apply them to your life, right? It's not just like, oh, I need to behave this way, which is literally an application to your life, of course. But it's to look deep into the depths of your soul, right? The depths of your mind, the depths of your heart, and to find the ways that you can cut these roots of the samsaric cycle, to cut the roots of the various things that we do that in a lot of ways are unconscious that create more suffering. So in that way, it's it's not just here's a list of things to do. It's not just a list of, oh, here's your ethical behavior. Good luck. Sure, that could be that. But let's think of it differently. Like, how does it apply not only to the things that we're like immediately doing, but what's the larger picture? Where is that? It's almost like they create what we were talking about the other day, create this protection circle. The circle gets larger and larger and larger around you. And the things that you say, the things you do, the things that you think all begin to change. Someone, I was talking to a friend last night, and one of their students was saying, how do you stop thoughts? Like, how do you stop certain kinds of negative thoughts? You know, and they said it's not that she said to the student, she said, look, it's not that I don't have the negative thoughts. It's just their power over me doesn't take over. It's like, oh, that's arising. Ooh, okay, let's attenuate that. Let's do something different. Let's not allow it to grow into a full tree. And so it becomes a practice, it becomes faster, where you recognize the little rumblings of negativities. And then you just start stopping them. How about that? You start controlling your behavior. You start responding in very different ways. I mean, the problem with you know, the most annoying thing is that we can't, how do I say this? We have patterns of behaviors that are just so ingrained. And so when somebody does something and we respond, we want to respond in that patterned way. We want to behave. We're like, no, you deserve to receive my behavior. Like, like I need to yell at you. I need to say this. I need to behave in this way. And it becomes this like this internal, well, for me, it is this internal battle of I want to be this way. And then the other part of me goes, well, Tim, this is going to create XYZ results. Do you want that result? And the answer is depending how bad the affliction is, right? If it's no, I don't, okay, then I can attenuate. Then I can say, well, no, don't do it. But then if I say, I don't effing care what the result is, then I just go with it. Or sometimes it's in between where you say, no, I don't, and then you can't stop the behavior. Because, like the nervous system is already programmed that way. Like your internal mechanisms are already, like the machine is already running. The machine of anger is already running. The machine of upset, the machine of inappropriate sexual attraction is already running. So how do we interrupt that? And that's what we're trying to do with these classes, is giving us a long list of things to think about. Yay. And then how we go through the application bit by bit. And we have to interrupt ourselves. We have to. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to if you don't want to. I mean, you have a choice. Okay. I'm not twisting your arm. You can do whatever you want. But if you start to understand doing whatever you want has certain consequences, then maybe and that's the thing where it's like, sure, we learn the basic consequences, but the point of these courses is to get us into understanding the subtler consequences. Um, I remember last night I was out to dinner with my parents are here visiting, and I was out to dinner with some friends, and my parents were like, I could tell they were like, I don't get these people. Like they were just like, they were having a good time for sure, but they were like yeah, it's like these are my friends. Yeah, some of them are older than you, mom and dad, and some of them are younger than they're like 20 years old, right? I looked around. I'm like, yeah, this in some worlds this might be weird. Um, and the thing is, like afterwards, we got in the car, and my parents, like they said it genuinely. They go like, "Your friends are just really nice." I'm like, I mean, part of me is like, duh, of course they are. I wouldn't be hanging out with not nice people. But I was thinking about like, my there was no negativity spoken of. Like there was no responsiveness. There was no negative like, oh, let's debate that point or let's do that. It was just a very different atmosphere than I think they're used to. And so they're like, all they could say is this is nice. I'm like, yeah, it is nice. Um, they were really funny too. They were like, Tim, I don't understand what you do. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand? They're like, we don't know how to tell people what you do. And I'm like, I don't know, got nice friends. How about that? Um, but you see that it was interesting to see the transformation in all of these people, like the way that people are with others. Like, how are you with other people? And how do you want to be with other people? And what world does that create? So we're now going to jump into the end of class 4 and moving into class 5. And we're going to be moving into things that are, to be quite honest, is informational. But I don't know, like it's hard for me to give a class on things that I don't directly know. Meaning, I don't know the monks and nuns' vows. I don't know how to live them directly because I'm not a monk. Contrary to popular opinion, I am not. I'm not a secret monk. I don't have secret robes that I wear in my house only. Um, so, and a lot of it is, it's uncomfortable. Like I was preparing for class and I'm like, why am I so uncomfortable with this? And I was like, it's because I don't know. Like it's not my thing. So it's part of the course. It's general information. And when the courses were originally taught, Geshe Michael said things like he couldn't talk about things because they're secrets, in the sense that you don't really get all the information until you're within the system. Like, and they're really what all the vows are and how to live all of them. So in that way, he didn't offer it either, but you could tell he was offering from a point of view of someone who knew it, right? So I don't have direct experience of it. Maybe past lives. I don't know. Probably. Um, but yeah, so I just want to give you guys that kind of heads up. And I'm like, this is coming as information, not as direct experience. So we're going to be moving into the Prakti Moksha vows beyond the layperson vows. Like, what are they? What are and how are they kind of grouped together? So, and it's a kind of a cool system that when I think about it is, you get to start off as like they say novice, but like a novitiate, right? Someone who's new, and you get to just try it out. You can put on the cloth, the robes of a monk or a nun, and you can start living in that way. So there's kind of there's a decision that gets made, and we talked about it in last class, like the decision of whether you're staying with the home life, whatever that means, layperson, not ordained, and then deciding to leave the home life. Like we had made the decision. Remember the picture of the cute family and then the kid who was running away, packed up his bag. Actually, I can just show you if you guys really want to see it. Where are you? There's the kid. Yeah, so here's the kid deciding to leave the home life. Right, he packed his bag. He didn't pack very much, right? And as a renunciate, giving up, basically you're making a commitment to say, I give up on normal life because in some ways you understand that for you, it'll help you get out of samsara. What are the implications of what I just said? Just want just want to say. Let's say, what didn't I say? How about that? For you logicians out there. I said, for those who decide that the home life is not going to be sufficient for them to get out of samsara, they leave the home life. What didn't I say? I'm training your minds. No, it means that you don't have to leave the home life to reach nirvana. Correct. Yeah, Yasheng. I didn't say you have to do this to reach nirvana. That's not what I said. Okay. For those that believe, or for them particularly, that leaving the home life would be of benefit, and it can be of benefit to reach nirvana, then yes, but it's not the only way. Okay, so I just want to make sure we understand that you guys don't leave this class thinking, oh my God, if I'm not ordained, I'm never going to achieve anything spiritual. All right, that's not the point. But so there's this choice, right? That before you take any kind of vows that you have left, Rabjung, that you've left the home life. Can you, okay, here's another question. Can you decide to leave the home life and not take ordination vows? Simple yes or no. I get what does this mean? It doesn't mean anything. Yes, you can. Why? Both sides are samsaric. Whether you are living a home life or whether you're living an ordained life, if you don't have the right point of view, it's still samsaric. If you think the vows come from their own side, if you think all this stuff, then it doesn't matter if you have 253 vows or 364 or 5 or 0. It doesn't matter. Okay. Different styles of life can help support different types of realizations. Yes, that's true. Didn't say not. But understand that what we're going into is not, it's a matter of understanding. And a lot of people choose to get ordained later in life because they understand how it can help them. And they understand the benefits of restraining one's mind and words in their body in a Vinaya way, and what that can do for liberation. Tracy, nice realization. Tracy realized that the vows don't exist from their own side either. Very nice. That should be a t-shirt. Okay. So if you decide to leave, you're looking at this world and you're like, this isn't working and it's not the place for you, you can decide to be ordained. A lot of the people who are ordained in our Sangha, strangely, not strangely, but live a home life and they're ordained. Like they're not living in a monastery. So then you ask the question, well, what does it mean to live a home life? What does it mean? What does it look like? There's lots of questions here. So let's pretend you want to get started. And you're like, hey, I want to try this out. Because I know all of you are super excited and want to. Some of you probably are. So when you take novice vows, when you're a beginner and you're just trying it out, there's 13 basic commitments that you take. All right. So there's 3 groups. Here we go. This is super fun. 3 groups. There's 4 primary vows. And what are they? What are the 4 primary vows? Do I need to start offering money? Come on. No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, and no lying. Do it slower. The first 4, yes. No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying. major four. And what is the special feature of the not lying? What is the worst lie you can say? What's the worst thing to lie about? Yes, Gina, yes. That you have spiritual realizations that you actually don't have. Okay. Claudia, have you seen emptiness directly? Or are you just, is that the quote? Um, so don't answer the question. I shouldn't even ask. So those are the four like worst, right? Those are the four things that you really start practicing. And probably the most, I would say probably the most challenging for some people, the most challenging one is the vows of celibacy, right? Because at that point you're committing yourself to celibacy. So it becomes, yeah. And then there's two other groups. One called 6 secondary vows and 3 transgressions. So we have 4 primaries, 6 secondaries, and 4 transgressions. What are those? Stay tuned when you put on the robes. You'll learn about them later. So this herein ends class 4. Moving on to class 5. So if anyone cares, I'm not really following the homework. All the information will be here, but it's not in the order of the homework because I wanted to teach it a little bit differently. So today we're just going to go through what are the basic divisions. So once you become a novice monk or nun, then you can chill out there for a while. You have to wait until you're 19, I believe, to receive full ordination. So for some reason, and it's not very clear and it's never been made clear, and over the 13 years I've asked this question, it's never been made clear. Why do women have an intermediate vows and men don't? Like, so nuns have to go through novice, intermediate, and then full. And so there's this intermediate stage where you're supposed to spend another 2 years before you can receive full ordination, where you give up 6 things and then 6 ancillary things. Okay. You give up 12, there's like 12 more commitments that you add in. Okay. But it's not really clear to me, and I've asked, like, why is there this intermediate stage where the men don't have to do that? It's not really clear. And in Tibet, the lineage of ordination for nuns actually died out. And there's this really cool discussion that Geshe-la has given in several occasions on how we can restore that lineage. Because in order to have an ordination, you need to have, if you're in there's different distinctions based on what the Buddha said. I'm just giving you information. Okay. This is just information. I don't understand it all. Is that in a central land, where the Buddhist teachings are strong, you need to have 12 ordained nuns to create a new nun. And if you're not in a central land, but you're in an outlying land where Buddhism isn't as strong, you only need 6. All right. And so there's this whole thing in the Vinaya, like it's very, very clear that that there's a distinction of like the male and female energy. There's a lot of discussion of this in the Vinaya, and we spend a lot of time in the mixed nuts on it. Like, what is the male energy? What is the female energy? What are the characteristics of those energies? And we'll learn in the next class or two a little bit more about it. Like when you can take a vow, like what kind of characteristics does one need in terms of the male and female energy to be able to, excuse me, to be able to take vows, for the vows to form in you. And it's interesting because they say that you have to have and they'll say the word healthy, but what's the word? That you have to have a type of sexual energy that's more clearly defined. I guess that's the word. I'm provisional right now. Honestly, I haven't prepared that class yet, so provisional language, okay. But in the sense that like they say that, for example, a eunuch, right? A male who's, you know, some people and some times were like guards, right, for the queen. And the men who were the guards had their testicles removed. So they didn't have any sexual desire. Right? So they say that because they don't have sexual desire, that they're not eligible to take Vinaya vows for some reason, because it's not present, it's not there. And we got to think about that a little bit. But there's all these different things. So, but there's also this aspect of the Vinaya, and it's all over the literature about, for example, you can keep your Vinaya vows. You can take all the monks' vows or nuns' vows, and you are allowed, and it's not really clear about the mechanism, but you are allowed to, if you switch your gender, like you go from male to female or female to male, you're allowed to do that up to 3 times before you lose your vows. It doesn't really describe mechanisms or how. Like, what is it? Like, is it a spontaneous shift of your physical body? Is it um, is it a change of your gender expression, keeping your physical body? It's not very clear. It's not clear at all. But it's all over the literature. So we probably have to assume in some way that it was a thing. Don't really know what it means. But you can switch your gender 3 times and then keep your monks and nuns vows. Um, so it's interesting. So when we were talking about restoring the nuns lineage, Geshe Michael was like, I just had an idea. What if we took 6 monks and they became women, and then they could restore the vows? And it was an honest discussion. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do that. Yeah, in one life purposes, like you can switch your energy 3 times. So it's really interesting to think about it. Like, is that something that people could do? Some people do it already. You know, there's hormone therapies, there's surgeries, there's both, there's all these things that people can do. So I don't know. I'm just talking about what the texts say. So in the Tibetan lineage, that there's been a broken lineage for the nuns' vows. So technically, as of what I know, that it's been challenging. I believe that they have restored it. I don't know how it's been done. I think they were waiting on some official word from the office of the Dalai Lama. I don't know. But the point is, okay, so what's the whole point? The point is you need a certain number of nuns to make more nuns. You need a certain number of monks to make more monks. And if you don't have it, you can't make them. There's not enough for the ceremony, according to the ancient texts. So for nuns, you start with novice, you add 12 more things, 12 primary, 12 secondary. You have to do that for 2 more years, then you can receive full ordination. For monks, it's novice vows, and then you can receive full ordination when you're of age, which is 19 years old. Informational purposes only. All right. Here we go. So what are the vows like, as much as we can talk about them? Because frankly, I don't know them very well. Okay. There's 364 nuns' vows, and there's 253 monks' vows. Okay. Again, I don't understand why there's more, so we can talk about that later. So here we go. So there's six, how do I say this? These vows are divided up into 6 categories. There's 6 different types of them. So we're going to go through what the 6 types are and how many vows are in each type for the monks and the nuns. Yay, here we go. So the first one are called defeats. So I took this picture from a chess game, checkmate, game over. All right, and what this means is that you've been completely defeated by your mental afflictions. You've been defeated by the enemy. Okay. And these are also in the order of most serious to least serious. And so what a defeat is if you commit the defeat, that you lose your vows, like they're gone, completely defeated, game over, can't restart. All right. So for nuns' vows, there are 8 defeats, and for the monks, there's 4. The 4 you guys already know, which we can share. No killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying. Okay. All right, second set. This is called the remainders. So my picture, the leftover from dinner. Okay, just a little bit left over. So what it means is that in the remainders, that when you do this, when you do this, that there is just a little bit of the vow still left over, and it can be restored. Just like there's a little bit of breakfast left over. Okay. It's just a bit left. All right. So there's 20 remainders for the nuns, and there's 13 for the monks. All right. Group 3. This one's called, they call it the downfall of releasing. or the downfall of release. So when you commit these errors against the valves, to repair it, you have to release some object. You have to give up something. Okay. So just like this American football player who he's running to throw the ball, right? You have to give up something. You have to release some object to repair the damage done to the valves. What are those things? Become ordained and you will find out. Okay. So there's 33 of these for the nuns and 30 for the monks. So just a reminder, each one of these becomes less and less severe. And I think when we say less and less severe, it means the capacity to restore them. And secondly, the karmic correlation, the karmic strength is less as well. Now, what do we mean by karmic strength? I mean, why is one karma stronger than another? Like there's a whole class on that. But so each of these become less and less serious. But less and less serious doesn't mean less and less observation of the vows either. In the sense that, oh, because it's a downfall release, I can do more of those than the, I can't do the defeats, but I can, it's not like thinking, well, I can do this sometime because I can restore the vows. That's not the way to think. They're all important. The severity of their karmic results in terms of lower rebirths and what you might have to suffer because of it is different. But it doesn't mean it doesn't mean, oh, it gives you liberty to do it sometimes. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes not. That's not the thing. So speaking of lower rebirths, the next section is just called downfalls. All right. That when you do this, you definitely fall down to the lower births. Okay. And this is from the Wheel of Life, and those are all the different realms. And we did that in class 2. So question. Here we go. Let's use our logic. Downfalls are about that they will definitely take you to a lower rebirth. So the ones that are more severe, will they take you to a lower rebirth or not? Just because they're not in a definition. Yes, right. More severe. You should take it seriously, right? Yes. So the level 4 of the 6, group 4 of the 6 is called downfalls. If you do this, it'll take you to a lower rebirth. But if you do any of the other ones, groups 3, 2, and 1, yes, it's more severe and you'll still have that lower rebirth too. Okay. So that's super exciting. How you feel about that? All right. So the next one is called the vows of, or actions of, oops, I'm sorry. So in the downfalls, there's 180 for the nuns and 90 for the monks. All right. So the next one is called deeds of individual confession. So this picture is about this guy here who's confessing to a priest, right? So the idea is that if you do one of if you do something in this group to restore it, you need to confess it individually first. Deeds of individual confession is what it's called. So if you do it, you have to find someone to confess to, which is one of the reasons they do sojung every 2 weeks. You have to confess that in a ceremony that you've done it, and that restores it. So in this group, there's 11 for the nuns and 4 for the monks. Okay. Group number 6, offenses. It's just called this because this is something that's not good. Again, I can't give you details. Right, so here's a soccer match, football match, and the guy does something wrong and he gets a yellow card. He still gets to play the game, right? But he did something wrong. He did something not good, but not bad enough that you get a red card and get ejected. All right. And this is the only one that has the same number. There's 112 for both. All right. So let's just go back. This is how many there are, 364 and 253 different commitments. If you're interested in learning all of those, you can find the translations of all of those on YouTube. We translated every single one of those vows we translated all of them in the Vinaya classes. So if you want to sit through 6 years of classes, something like 18 times 6 is what? 96? 800 and something? It's 100 and some classes. What is it? 18 times 6? 108 classes. That's auspicious. Somewhere around 108 classes. You can learn every single one of those. And you can learn a lot of Tibetan too, if you're interested. And we go through them and we analyze them. What do they actually mean? So it's really cool. It's really a in-depth thing. It's interesting. I have more of an interest in it now, but when I was in the class, literally, I'll just be honest. Literally, it was like the curtain shut. Tim couldn't pay attention. Like I didn't have the karma to hear it. I was in class, but I just was like, I was off in Disneyland or something. Yeah, so I don't really know. I mean, I listened, but I didn't listen. Like my brain just didn't have the karma to listen to it. But it's interesting. I do now have an interest in it. It was like, there were 12 mixed nuts classes. We did 6 a day over 2 weeks. It was so intense. By the end, your brain just is exploding. You're just trying to stay awake in it. But yeah. So if you're interested, let's see if we can go find them, and I can give you the link. Let's go find them. See if anyone else can find them faster than me. I think I mean, really, at the end of the day, like, even if you don't become ordained, there's lots of interesting things in there that is, oh, you know what? They're not in a playlist yet. We'll get that later. We'll get them in a playlist. Oh, there is a playlist. Oh my goodness. Anastasia, nice.
That's old one. We have a new.
Yeah, so it's a playlist of some classes. You guys will be there for months just with this short playlist. Great. Thank you. But what's interesting is, like, even if you decide not to become ordained, but you look at these vows and you start practicing some of them, it's there could be a path to liberation in there if you're interested. All right. So luckily, this is a short class. Hey, that's so exciting. So I thought, when I planned the class, that why don't we do some Q&A? You guys don't get much of an opportunity to have your questions answered. So I thought it'd be nice that you can ask your questions, and it doesn't have to be about this course. It can be about anything. It can be a personal question. It can be a question of, um, anything we've learned so far, or any questions of philosophy. And if you don't speak English, please put your questions in the chat in your language. All right. I got Google's. I can translate it, so don't be shy. Like, yeah, don't be shy. So there you go.
Vaya, hand is
Claudia, ¿tienes pregunta?
Sí, hola Tim. Good morning. Thank you for the class. I have a question about the mantra you told us before. I think so, 2 classes before or something. Delect Sugyurtik. I was reading at the meaning of the mantra, and it says like, may all living beings achieve temporary happiness and permanent Buddhahood. And I was wondering if you can explain a little bit. Like I couldn't understand like deeply what's the meaning of this mantra, and maybe can you talk a little bit about it?
Sure, that's a good question. So the mantra is, it's actually the opening lines of Jason Kappa's commentary to the Vinaya Sutra. Let me make sure I said that correctly. Let me look at my notes here. Hold on. Yeah, it's the opening lines of the essence of the ocean of discipline, which is right, which is the commentary to the Vinaya Sutra. Right. So what it means is, let's translate it differently. May all beings be successful in the worldly life and in their ultimate life. Like, may all beings be happy. May all beings get what they want in a temporary sense. Like, I want a good relationship. I want good finances. I want health. I want inner peace, like the 5 main goals, right? Like, get those things in this life, and may they also achieve the highest goals of Buddhahood. So it's a desire that everybody gets what they want, even in a samsaric way, and may they also get the highest goals as well. And it's really a cool wish. And I've seen it with my teachers quite often, and we've had some debates, and, where some people, kachiks, someone comes up and says, oh, DCI isn't Buddhism because it doesn't include renunciation. And there was some debates about this, because, and it still happens, where people are like, why do you go into why do we go into Taiwan, where we have 6,000 people? I think it was 3,000, but now it became 6. The story will be 10,000 next week. We had a huge stadium of people. I think it was about 5,000 people come to hear Geshe Michael in DCI. And, the main message, although that class was a little bit different, is like, get what you want. You can get what you want. You can get what you want, right? How do you, it's like, motivational speaking, you can get what you want. And how do you get what you want? There's the 4 steps. I want money. I want a great partnership. I want health, right? And all the variations of those things. And I'm going to get the 4, and here are the 4 steps to do it. What are the 4 steps, Tim? Decide what you want. Help somebody else. Find someone else who wants the same thing you do. Now go help them get it. And then for the love of gods or Buddhas or whatever you want to say in that phrase, for the love of your seeds, rejoice. Okay. And if you do those 4 things, you too can get what you want. Okay. And there's been a little bit of, people being like, well, isn't the point of Buddhism to get out of suffering? Like, sure, get what you want, but can't keep it. Can't keep your body, can't keep your money. And maybe, but I think there's this other side of it that, there's a thing in the Lam Rim, it's called Daunjor, spiritual leisure and fortune. Like to be able to practice, you have to have a certain level of goodness in your life to be able to have a mind and body and life style to be able to practice. And if you don't have those things in place, you won't be able to. And so, is it a problem to inspire people to get what they want? If you're worried all the time about your finances or, your housing, your food, your health, forget it. You're not going to be able to focus. You're not going to be able to meditate. You're not going to have time to meditate. You're going to think meditation is a waste of time. Your karma will rise that way that it will be a waste of time. It'll feel that way, right? So it is a beautiful thing to want people to have temporary happiness. May all beings have what they need and want in this life. Okay. Because the thing is, once you we know that money doesn't create happiness. It doesn't. Like, how many unhappy people are there when they have money? Sure, there's people who have money who are happy, but it doesn't create it. It doesn't create long-lasting relationships. It doesn't do those things. So, and I think what happens is we end up getting when we inspire people to figure out how to get what they want, over time, what they want changes. It's really cool, right? I've seen it happen where people want certain levels of comfort, certain levels of money, and they can go get it with the 4 steps, and that's nice. But then they decide they want something different, right? They want something different out of it. So that's why. That's why it's a cool, in my view. Like, you want to justify DCI? Here we go. We're going to justify DCI right now. Omdelek Sungirchik. Sungirchik, right? Omdelek Sungirchik. Jason Kappa justifies DCI in the opening lines of the commentary to the Heart Sutra, to the Vinaya Sutra. First line, we could debate it, right? So don't tell me inspiring people to get what they want. You want to give people what they want. May all beings have what they want. Guess who has to do it? You. Guess who has to help them? You. It's cool. It's really cool. I had I was having an argument. Well, it was a heated discussion over email. It was a heated corporate discussion over email. Okay. Everyone's being corporately polite. Okay. And if you've ever been in corporate, you know what that means. If you ever ask, here we go, corporate. If you ever ask me if something can be done and I say, oh, let me check with the team, that means no. I'll check with the team and get back with you means no. But you don't say no. Anyhow, but we were having a heated discussion, and some people were really like the two sides. I can imagine both sides talking in their like staff meetings and then communicating in corporate emails, right? And the side I was on, and I was doing the communicating, the team was like so upset. By the way, this was not the ACI staff. Okay. This was a different group. Just if anyone cares, I'm very careful not to call people out directly, but it wasn't the ACI staff. And people were upset. They can't do this. I can't believe this. This isn't everything. And they were all upset. And we grabbed Geshe Michael. Well, they did. And they were upset. And his answer was really cool. He said, just give them what they want. Rah, 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 we can't do that. Why would we do that? They're wrong. You know, all this stuff. The language was more fierce than that. And he was just like, no, just give them what they want. You know, and I thought about it for a long time. And it was really, it's the most genius thing we could have done in that moment. Because if we hadn't, it would have created an entirely confrontational and uncomfortable event between two groups of people. And we wouldn't have worked well together. And it wouldn't have been like, it was very, very, from that side, it made the whole event go. But on the other side of it, it was like, the way to stop afflictions is to give the affliction what it wants. Give the affliction what it wants. Because you want to stop other people's afflictions. Because whose afflictions are they? Why do you see somebody having an affliction? Why are they upset? Why are they stuck in self-existence? Why are they stuck in their upset? Why are they, whatever those things are? Why? Why do you have to see it? You know, that doesn't mean just give every affliction what it wants. You know, that's not what I said. But to consider that. If you can stop somebody's upset for a little bit, even if that means you have to eat some shit. Okay. Low jung it. Like, even if you have to take on if you have to take on the crap. For some reason at Diamond Mountain, I got yelled at a lot. And it wasn't even my fault. Right? But I just was like, all right, I'll eat this pile of garbage you're throwing at me. I'll eat it so you can relax. So we can move forward. Right? It's embarrassing to be yelled at in front of a lot of people. You know, but you know, sometimes you just need to eat the garbage and then move on. You know, so how do you help the afflictions? So thank you, Claudia, for the question. Like, because eventually people will want bigger and better things that are beyond samsaric bank accounts. All right, let's see. What does this question say? Translate. Let's see here. Okay, that's a good question. So the question here is about, oh, someone translated it. Thank you, Anna. So the question here really is like, when we're talking about killing, right? No killing a human or a fetus. And then we started suggesting, well, what is the concentric circle? Like, what is the no killing this, but what about no killing cows or goats or horses or other things that people eat, fish, right? You know, or like not stepping on ants or driving slow during butterfly season so they don't smash into the car, right? Like, where does it go out from? And then the question is like, what's the different, is there a different weight to the karma of killing a butterfly that hit your car versus killing a cow that you ate versus killing a human? Is there a karmic difference? And I don't know. I think there is some kind of karmic difference between killing a human and killing some other animal. And one of the reasons they would say there's a difference is a human is capable of reaching enlightenment as a human, where a butterfly is not. Okay, so you're taking away somebody's potential to reach total enlightenment. Someone who could reach a place where they could serve all beings and then you kill that person. That's karmically pretty heavy. And then there's a different weights of karma, like if you do something with intention or premeditation versus not. Like, you know, even the law in the United States is different. Like if you accidentally kill somebody, like say in a car accident, versus, you know, you sat in your house and you planned all the details of how you were going to kill somebody. Like, all right, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to break in here, we're going to do this, then we're going to bury the body, you know, the plan, right? There's a karmic difference between planning on doing it versus, oops, it just happened. Like, oh gosh, I got in a car. I mean, it's awful, of course, but there's a karmic difference at that level. But I think what happens is that as you get deeper into it, like, it's weird what starts happening to me. Like, you know, I'm driving down the street and then a bug hits the windshield, right? And I hear it. Like, I hear the sound, you know, and then there's this moment where like I do like a tongue lens and like imagine what it was like for that bug to have just experienced that. Like, I'm just flying along. I'm like looking for food, right? And out of nowhere, you're smashed, right? You know, the sound, the pain, the quickness, all like it's like vanished in like a split second. You know, and it's shocking for me. You know, so in some way, like I drive slower because of it. just to be like, well, I'm serving other beings by driving here, but by driving here, I have the karma to be killing things at the same time. What WTF? What do I do with that? I don't know if you guys have that in translation, right? What do I do with that? So I think you really need to, don't go crazy, first of all. Like, don't get so obsessed, in the sense that, like, if you really got obsessed, you wouldn't eat anything. Because even if you only ate vegetables, how did the vegetables get to the grocery store? Oh, well, the vegetables were in a field somewhere. And even if it's an organic field where they don't use pesticides, someone had to pick the plants. There were probably bugs on it, or the machines that picked the plants rolled over bugs in the grass or in the dirt. And then all of it got put into a box, and then the boxes got put into ships or trucks, and then the trucks had to go somewhere. And the trucks are big, and they just smash through all the bugs that they drive through, right? It's really hard. I mean, even if you grew your own food in your house, had a little farm in your backyard, you would have a little bit more control of it, but at the same time, like, don't you are a living being too, that for your body to survive, there are other creatures that necessarily are symbiotically living with you, right? Even in your stomach, right? You have bacteria. Are bacteria alive? I don't know where the line gets drawn. You have bacteria on your skin. Little bugs living, like little tiny, like, they're not like, they don't bite, but like little tiny bugs can live on you. Like, try to go to sleep thinking about all the bugs living on you. You'll never sleep. Okay. So yeah, that's enough. Okay, next question. Oh, Yasheng has an interesting question. I've thought about this. Yasheng says she has a company, and happens to be the director of that company and the only employee so far, right? And because of tax laws and the way things are, in the system, she can take less salary, pay less taxes, but make more money than if she were an employee for just a general company, right? Part of it is investing in the company, but at the same time, there's certain tax benefits to owning a company, which allows you to pay less taxes and then you get more money in your pocket. And so the question is this stealing? Like, some people who don't own businesses have to pay more taxes than people who do own the businesses. And the question is this stealing, or am I planting money am I planting it in a way to be worth less money in the future? So I thought about this a lot. When I started my first company, I was about 25, 26. And then I studied the US tax law. And I realized, well, that's one of the reasons I started a company. I started realizing that you can make a lot more money than if you're just a general employee. In some ways you can. And based on the tax laws, you can do things that you can't do. Like, basically, I got to a point where almost everything I was doing was business related. So I had very little personal expenses, right? Like half of my house was part of the business. So I wrote off half of my rent, half of my utilities, my phone, my internet, my car usage, right? So all of these things are permitted by the tax law, right? So on paper, I was making very little money, but in real life, I was doing quite fine. Like I was just taking money that I needed for little bits of rent and things like that, but everything else was being paid through the company, like meetings and food and things like that all can be written off in a certain way. Not all of it, but anything that's related to the business can be. So the question is that stealing? It's a good question. Because is it stealing in a way that other people don't have the same advantage that you have? You know, and it's actually a big debate in the United States, because if you understand the tax laws, you can be you know, you can make a lot of money and pay very, very little taxes. If you know how to hide the money, you know where to put the money, you know how to invest it in certain companies and all this other stuff. So you can do it and then pay very little taxes, but have a shit ton of money. You know, this is the question, like working hard and money, right? You can work hard and make a lot of money. You can not work hard and make a lot of money. You could work hard and not make any money, or you can not work hard and not make any money. Mushi musum. Sorry, translators. You know, but I really think there's a different way to think about it. You know, as I was saying, there's a big debate in the United States about certain millionaires who have very little tax liability. And is that fair? You know, if you own a business, the hotel that we purchased, the previous owners ran their life through the business, their car, like all of this stuff was like, when I analyzed everything, I was like, because I had to analyze as we were trying to figure out like what our actual budget was and what our profit was going to be. There was so much that I had to take out because it wasn't being filtered through the ownership. Like the ownership allowed a tremendous amount of tax-free money to flow to them, but then I had to put it back in the this is not tax-free section first, right? So I had to do a lot of analysis to understand what our actual profit was going to be after taxes. So I would think of it differently. Like, one is, what are you doing with your money? And why are you making money in the first place? Right? You know, if you understand corporate tax law, and we're experts at it here because we have a storage facility right here. You know, we have 2 hotels up here. You know, we have multiple properties that we're managing, and they all are taxable events. So how do we, you know, we pay all of our taxes that we owe. We pay everything we're supposed to pay. So we're not cheating the system. The laws are the laws and we follow the law. But the laws allow us to use that money in different ways. Like, we can give up to 12% of our revenue tax-free to any nonprofit. Just give away. Any corporation can give away 12% off the top. Great. Yay. Right? So we can do that. So you're giving money away to nonprofits. But it's also, what are you doing with the money? What is the intention of spending that money? Right? It usually doesn't sit around. You're usually circulating it into projects, into salaries, into all these other things. There are taxable events happening. It's called people's salaries. right? So I would think of it more, Yasheng, as what is your intention behind making the money, and what are you going to do with it? Like, are you going to take care of only yourself? And you should take care of yourself. But are you only taking care of yourself, or do you have a vision for something bigger in mind? And I think that's how, so that's how I went from, I had a terrible money karma for many years. But that's how I went from that to being, I would say I'm pretty I have a financial freedom. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm comfortable. My house is taken care of, my car's taken care of, my clothes are taken care of. I don't need very much. Actually, the more stuff you have, the more you got to care for it. Kind of sucks. Got to care for your samsaric stuff. Right? Sure, I want all this stuff, but then you got to care for it. But I would think, Yasheng, what are you going to do with the money? If it's legal, but also check, like, are you taking money from other people, or are you going to be using it for something else? And then the fact that you have the karma to be able to do that versus having to give your money to someone else. Like, if you give your money to the government and then government decides what to do with the money versus I get to keep the money and decide what to do with the money, that's a different karma. Like, you have ownership of that. Now, if you're not careful with it, you'll lose that karma. But if you have the ownership of that and you can make that decision, it's nicer to make the decision where the money goes versus giving it to the government. And then the government they do all their things, like wars. How much of the US government budget is set aside for wartime? Sickening to me, frankly. But that's what they do with them. That's what they do with the money in this country. Hope that was helpful. What other questions do we have here? I saw one earlier. Yeah, there's a question here about Tonglen. And it's a question that people ask frequently. Can I do Tonglen for people who have already died? And in the Abhidharma, it says that, between death and rebirth, there's about a 40-day window before someone takes birth again. And that's a really, really good time to do Tonglen and to spend time talking to them. Because they say that they can hear you, and to remind them of who they were and the good things that they did. And then also to do Tonglen on their particular, the suffering that they have in that in-between state. So yes, it's a really good thing to do. And even if it's past the 40 days, you certainly can still do it as well, because you're also working with your seeds to see the suffering that they have. Oh, Persis, this is a great question. How can I plant seeds for joyful effort? Are you feeling not joyful? Let's see here. Lost in the joyful effort. Okay. So this is, this happens frequently, right? How do I say this? When you have a new relationship, right? You meet someone, you're super excited about them, you could call it the honeymoon period, right? And everything is super amazing, incredibly exciting, and all this energy. And part of it is hormonal, and part of it is just life is good. And you know, you're finally getting what you want and you enjoy everything. And then something happens, right? In the honeymoon period, you know, you have your first fight, you know, you have your, you know, like you start seeing the person, you know, in a different way. You start seeing them more as a human and not as like a god or goddess, right? You see them pick their nose, you know, whatever you see them do. Leave the toilet seat up, as Tracy says, you know, whatever the thing is. You know, then you're just kind of like, oh, you're just a normal human, right? And then all those things kind of start taking over. And I would say also in Dharma practice too, right? You get started and all these bakchucks just start going off. It's like, right? You know, all this excitement of service and helping other people, and you're putting some great seeds into place. But at the same time, there's a danger that those seeds can wear out. Yeah. And I know this thing, right? I've been around for 13 years, you know, just in this, you know, just working for ACI. And you go through periods where you're not as excited as others. You know, the motivation isn't there, or you're like, God damn, I have to do this again. Like, I have more of this, I have more of this. You know, it's like it's like, and a lot of it is repetitive tasks. It's like, oh my God, I have to do this again. You know, and one of the things that Geshe Michael always did to me is I got really good at event production, and he would always make it more complicated for me. Every single event, he would do something that would make it even harder. And I think one of the things is that being a bodhisattva is learning how to expand your wings, and learning how to grow arms and serve more people and not get stuck. And so one of the things that, you know, especially with the ACI team, that I'm always trying to motivate is like, learn how to do something, do it well, and then train somebody else and learn something new. Don't get stuck in the thing that you're good at, right? Find volunteers, find other people, you know, train someone to do your job, so then you don't have to do it anymore. Okay. Which is kind of counterintuitive, because you want to train someone to do your job, then you won't be useful anymore. Like, well, no, that's not the case. It just opens up your mind and heart for other things. You know, so part of this, keeping the seed going, is training others to do it. You know, how do they, and that is also part of the joyful effort, because it's like, I learned how to do this, now I'm going to train you. I learned how to do this, now I'm going to train you. And so then that actually becomes the seed for joyful effort as well. You know, and I've seen it like in so many ways that it's ripened on the ACI team, where it's like, I don't know if you guys were at the Medicine Buddha, but I was there. And at the end of it, the team put together this beautiful video of pictures of the ACI volunteers. And it was one picture after the other, right? And it just was like categories. It wasn't even names. It was like, here are all the Italian translators. Here's all the tech people. Here's all this, right? And I was watching this video and I was like, I don't know any of these people. I mean, I know some of them, but I don't know who I don't know who all the people are. And I was like, this is amazing. The organization has gotten so large that I can't possibly know all the people. You know, and there's a beauty to that. And then seeing where we were 5 years ago. 5 years ago, literally each event was Tim recruiting a few volunteers, and then we would just run an event, and that would be the end of it, right? And it just was a cycle. You know, and then people kept showing up and wanting to help, and then we started hiring people, and then one of the things that I trained that group to do was to hire volunteers, recruit volunteers. Oh, you got a job? Great. Find someone who wants to do it, who wants to help. You know, so the organization just went very, very quickly. And the joy that came from seeing that, and so many people who were dedicated to what ACI is doing, like it fueled my joyful effort, right? So what do you do when you're stuck? I mean, I think that's the main question. You know, the main question is like, okay, the seeds for joyful effort have run out, or are running out, or so then what changes can you make now to kind of fuel it, to keep it going? You know, and you know, I noticed that I think you were translating my class the other day. Like, that's new, right? Congratulations, thank you. You know, so you've added something new, which is great, but then all the other stuff you're doing, maybe you can't do it all, right? So who can you recruit to do the other stuff? You know, I always tell the ACI team, I'm like, don't get too cushy, because there's 200 people around the world who want your job. Right? There's people that want that job, right? So train people to do your job. Like, find other people who might be interested. And, you know, and if you're in a paid position where you can't do volunteers, talk to your boss and say, look, I'm doing these things. I want to train people to do these other things. I want to build a larger team. You know, how can you help me do that? A boss, there's nothing sweeter to a boss than to hear, I want to build this, and here's my plan. How can you help me? And then the boss is like, then they understand what the need is. You know, and that, you know, so in that way, if you're in a paid position, you're showing them your value, but you're also showing the growth potential. But really I think the seed for joyful effort is to teach people what you know. That was a long way of saying that. Like, teach people what you know. And then watch them grow. Watch them grow. And then, I'm not a parent, but it kind of feels that way sometimes. You know, watch somebody grow over 5 years and you're like, right? And then you just congratulate them, right? Because they did it, but you facilitated, and you see them becoming successful on their own. Does that make sense? Yeah. So become a teacher, Persis. That's basically the short answer. And you are, by translating. So cool. Thanks, guys. Happy Thursday. When is the next class? Nope. Sorry, I typed the wrong word in. I have no idea. Let's see here. Next class is Monday, I think. Tuesday. Tuesday next week is our class 6, November 14th. So you have the whole weekend off. So thank you all very much. Thanks for joining. Thanks for the good questions today. And let's say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Chao, Tim. Chao.
Tim, gracias.
老师
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
谢谢 Tim.
Have a nice day.
You so much, Tim.
Bye.
Oh, yes. Happy birthday.
Thank
With
you.
delay.
Happy birthday. Tantissimi auguri.
Feliz cumpleaños, Tim.
Tanti auguri.
Yay.
Come on.
Cool. Cool. Thank you, translators. Thank you, tech team. Very much appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ciao. Have a good day.
Ciao.